John Redmann, Power of Attorney, the show that aims to empower you through the knowledge of the law. I'm Attorney John Redmann.
And I'm Shauna Sanford. Each week we tackle a different area of the law with guests who have lots of expertise in their fields. Now, if you are an inventor, a writer, or an artist of any kind who wants to make sure that your creations are legally protected, then this show is definitely for you. Today we're going to be talking about an area of law that you may be familiar with. It's called intellectual property.
How do you obtain a copyright, a trademark, or a patent? What's the difference between these? Now, our guest today is attorney Seth Nerbass, who has many years of experience helping people who need practicing intellectual property law. Seth will be joining us soon, but first, let's get to the news.
All right, thank you, John. Well, if the early voting numbers are any indication, voter turnout today is expected to be very high across the state. According to the Secretary of State's office, Louisiana voters set a record number in early voting. Some 340,000 people went to cast their ballots early this time around. A lot of people seem to be very excited about this election.
Well, there's so much on the ballot. There's so much at stake. I mean,
Right.
The presidential election is obviously a big deal. It's a big factor on everybody's minds. However, 9 constitutional amendments, Crescent City tolls, judgeships, U.S. House of Representatives,
That's right.
a lot of stuff.
Elections.
So I think it's going to be a record. It's going to be 2008, I'm sure. 62% was last election in 2008. This year, who knows?
Well, and we talked about this on the show last week, those constitutional amendments. So important for people to know how they're going to vote before they actually go in to vote, because I think they're trying to keep it at about 3 minutes each. You know, they want to get people in and get them out. So it's very important that people study up on those constitutional amendments and really everything to know how they're going to vote before they go in.
Yeah, there's a website, govote.com, G-E-A-U-X, vote.com, and you can put in your zip code and get your ballot so you know what you're going to be seeing when you go into the voting booth. Definitely, you want to look at that before you go in. Otherwise, it'll be a lot to see. It's confusing, but hopefully you're prepared, you're ready to vote, and you will go vote today. Please go vote if you see this show at the 1:30 cast.
That's right, and people really do need to know their rights. I was listening to the radio, and people were calling in, talking about some of their experiences about going to vote. Some people a little bit frustrated about how long it was taking them to actually get to the polling locations. But I think it's an indication, you know, that people want to vote. People understand how important it is to cast their votes and make their opinions and voices heard.
It's a blessing in this country that we get to elect our leaders. We get to vote for what laws we think are going to govern our society, and we get to elect our legislators who pass the laws that govern us. So please don't waste that opportunity. Go vote.
And fortunately, we're not having a lot of problems in terms of voter suppression that some other states are seeing. Those are interesting cases that still will continue to come up, and I'm sure that we'll be talking about in the days and weeks to come.
Yeah, we'll have to do a show about all those laws and constitutional amendments. We'll see that in the future.
Well, should traffic court and municipal court be merged? That is the question, and so far 2 reports have found that in fact the 2 courts should come together. The latest found that there is highly fragmented and low-tech coordination among public safety agencies in the city. And John, I know you have very strong feelings about this.
Well, some years back there was a big push. In fact, it was decided that the criminal and the civil courts would merge. As one of the lawyers who practice in the civil courts, and I don't do criminal, but the practitioners in those 2 courts said it was a bad idea. It was kind of like merging your cardiologist with your foot doctor. But this makes a little more sense. In other words, obviously technology helps doctors, it helps lawyers, it helps everybody. Municipal traffic, I think a lot of that, the technology, it can be merged together. Does the same judge need to be handling both things? I think if there's enough caseload such that you need 4 judges, well, if 2 judges are handling all the municipal and 2 judges are handling all the traffic, I think the more specialized each judge is, the better, because frankly, there's enough traffic offenses and traffic laws to keep 1 judge specialized. But honestly, I'd like the opportunity to read that research before I weigh in on my opinion.
Okay, all right. Well, this next story is a perfect example of our big topic today. Who owns the rights to the slogan, Who Dat? You'll remember last year's battle between the National Football League and residents over that catchy phrase. Well, it turns out that it may be owned by two brothers from San Antonio. After some heated legal battles, local stores such as Storyville and Monogram Express have settled with the San Antonio company and will be allowed to continue selling Who Dat merchandise. Now, this is something that everybody can kind of sink their teeth into. Who owns the phrase Who Dat? This is a really interesting case. It's been going on for a while.
That's one of the reasons why we thought it would be great to have my friend Seth Nerbass here today. He practices in this area of law, and my opinion is nobody owns that. That saying has been around since before the owners that say that they're the owners of that phrase were born. That thing's been around since, I think, the 1890s, and certainly that's the first recorded use of it. It's been around since way before then, I'm sure. But the fact that the parties settled means that they decided amongst themselves how they were going to deal with it. No court of law has said this is the owner and anybody else who wants to use it's got to pay to use it. But we'll talk to Seth about that. I think it'll be an interesting discussion.
And perfect segue, because coming up next, attorney Seth Nerbass joins us to talk about intellectual property. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.